We may have a few people join us as we go along. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6. So we do have 6 board members, so that gives us a quorum. And I see we also have a Brian. Who is Brian?
Brian Hellner, Paul.
Oh, hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I don't know that much about the Zoom stuff, so I didn't put my last name.
Okay, so Brian is a former board member of ours who still stays in the loop on things. So let me get started. We'll call the meeting to order. It is 6:34. And I'm sorry, Mary, I should have emailed you our meeting documents, but now that you're on my email list, you will get all future meeting documents. So first item is our meeting minutes, which are page 3 and 4 of the packet that I sent out. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to look at the minutes. If someone wants to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, is there a second? Steve Lyle seconds that. Any questions on the meeting minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So then we have our treasurer's report. I'll turn it over to Janet. That is on page 5 of our meeting minutes, or our meeting documents.
Okay, this is the treasurer's report as of February 28th. We have 23 paid members. 3 dues were received during the month of February. I don't know if anybody can see me anymore, but I think you can hear me.
No, I can see you.
I can hear
Okay.
you. I can see you.
Oh, that's good because we can't see anybody, but so take Outlook anywhere ours reads right now. But we have a bank balance. Our dues total was $60. And our bank balance and checkbook balance, which is equal, is $1,417.92. And as Paul put out in the email, that as of March 1st is when we start collecting our dues for the new year. And would appreciate anyone who wishes to send in their dues to send them ASAP, so we can see how we can spend the money this year.
And
That
we-
comes directly to me, which is in the email, the address. So look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
We charge $20 a year to be a dues paying member. So I think those will hopefully start coming in. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Steve?
Hey, Janet, did you
Yes.
say the address to send it to? Where's that? Your place?
It's 8617.
Oh, you're gonna write it down, aren't you?
Oh, okay, but it's in Paul's email on March 6th.
It's in the
Okay.
email.
All
Yeah.
right.
But
Okay.
I will send it out to you again, Steve. My pleasure to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you,
All right.
Janet.
Yeah.
I had
You're
the same
welcome.
question. I had the same
Yes.
question. You know, I noticed on the screen, my face is not showing. It's just a blank wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you got to turn your video camera on somehow.
Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay.
There you are.
Hey, there she is.
Something else, something else.
All right, any questions regarding the treasurer's report? So we really haven't been spending much money, but we'll talk a little later in the agenda about maybe spending some money. So next item on, well, I should say, if someone want to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
All right, Larry, is
I'll-
there a second? I see Maria,
I'll
second.
second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our Niagara County disclosure form. So we filed a lawsuit last year to sue Niagara County because they denied a Freedom of Information Law request that we made. With the assistance of the University of Buffalo Law School, they filed the lawsuit for us and we won. So that's great. And the only outstanding issue right now is whether the judge will order the county to pay attorney fees. The University of Buffalo Law School submitted an application to be paid $18,000 for their work. And so the UB submitted papers, you know, with their hours they kept and the work they did. And Niagara County had a chance to file papers opposing that. And I guess today was kind of the deadline for Niagara County. And according to our attorney, Niagara County said they were not submitting anything in writing, that they would stand on the oral argument they made, that they just simply opposed having to pay the attorney fees. Part of the argument was that we haven't paid any attorney fees. So they shouldn't be ordered to pay any. Of course, counter argument is, well, the University of Buffalo did work for us and we don't have any money to pay them. But when you win a lawsuit, you have a right to ask for the losing side to pay fees. So they made that request. So now at least all the paperwork on both sides is in, and now the judge has to make a decision. So I don't know if that'll take weeks or months, but hopefully at some point we will get a decision. And they may not order the full 18,000, but I hope that the judge orders something. A lot of time judges are reluctant to have taxpayer dollars spent on attorney fees, but I think it's important to send the message that, you know, if you're gonna refuse to turn over records, you should pay a price for that. And so we'll have to see. We'll keep you posted.
That is the law, Paul. Why have a law if it's not followed?
Yeah, there should be a penalty for you were wrong and not providing the information.
Another thing is, I was checking over the FOIL law, and it says that when we prevail in our lawsuit, attorney's fees are to be paid.
Yeah.
The
So,
very end of it.
well, you have the right to ask and it's up to the judge. So.
But it's not
Maria?
uncommon to be paid according to the FOIL.
Right.
When you challenge another thing, Paul, like maybe it's important, maybe it's not, but that was the UB Law Clinic with respect to transparency.
Yeah. Maria?
I have a question, Paul.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it's $18,000 of legal fees.
Yeah.
Is that all just legal fees, or is part of it like a penalty or a surcharge or something? Or
No,
something
it's
like
just
that?
all fees. There's a couple $100 in filing fees they had to pay, but the rest is just legal fees for their hourly rate, which I think was $150 an hour. So it's a lot of research and writing and back and forth with the county.
Okay,
Yeah.
one other question too. Since assuming we're going to be successful in this
We were.
endeavor, well, we were, yeah, but now getting the legal fees is what I meant. Sorry,
Right.
Sonia.
This is North
these
Tonawanda.
are-
That's what you're forgetting, Maria.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, since we were
Niagara
successful in the
County.
lawsuit, and now we're just pursuing the legal fees to be reimbursed, and this is taxpayer dollars, do they have to like pass a resolution, vote on the town board? Could they get away with town board saying, no, we oppose this? Or
No,
because
if the judge orders it, it has to be paid. I assume they have money in the budget from the law department that they would just use to pay it. It
Okay.
could possibly have to be approved by the legislature, but they probably would just pay for it out of the law department budget that they have.
Okay, I just didn't want them to wiggle out of it after we came this far.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, after the judge orders fees, they could appeal. They could say, you know, we don't agree with that order. So we'll see.
But they didn't.
Okay,
Well, they have to, first the judge has to
Thank you.
decide whether fees are being paid or not, and whatever that dollar amount is, they can appeal it if they want to. That just happened recently in Watertown. In Watertown, a news agency sued the city for not releasing a document. They won, and the judge ordered, I think, $10,000 in attorney fees there, and the city council filed an appeal. And just last week, actually, they withdrew their appeal and agreed to pay it, but you can always appeal.
Paul,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Paul, when the judge gave his decision, it would be up to the county to appeal his decision, correct?
They can appeal his decision, which they didn't, but they can also appeal the order for attorney fees. It's two separate things.
So you could separate it. I would think
Yeah,
when he's
yeah.
going to do the appeal, not on the decision. Of
No,
course, they're not going to say on the decision, because if we won, that includes the fees.
no, it's two separate issues.
Okay, I was going to say it seems disjointed, but okay, it's two separate
Yeah,
issues.
yeah,
Again, that's Niagara County we're dealing
yeah.
with.
Next item on the agenda is next week begins Sunshine Week, where across the nation, it's always the second or third week in March. Newspapers and journalists celebrate the importance of a free press and open government. So every year during Sunshine Week, we like to do something to highlight that. So on Monday, March 15th, I will be sending out a press release tomorrow with the link and everybody. We're going to be doing a Zoom press conference Monday at 10 a.m. with New York State legislator Amy Paulin. She has introduced 3 bills. They're listed on the agenda, 3 bills in the state legislature regarding the open meetings law and the FOIL law. So we're pleased to have her support. She has passed hundreds of bills as a legislator the past few years. She's probably one of the more prolific legislators in the state as far as getting things passed. So we're going to be doing that, and that'll be a great opportunity for reporters and newspapers to write an article about Sunshine Week and to highlight these bills that we're trying to get passed. Now, I did run into a bump in the road just yesterday on one of these bills. So the first bill is to require posting, mandating that meeting minutes be posted online. Right now, the open meetings law does not mandate that. All the law says is if someone requests minutes, they have to be provided to them. There have to be minutes ready within 14 days of a meeting being held. Now, although you're not required to post minutes, most places do it. It's a good thing to do. It's a great way to inform people. So that's one law. The second bill introduced was to mandate that meeting documents be posted online 24 hours before the meeting, and that meetings must be live streamed, and that a recording, whether it's audio or video recording, will be posted online after the meeting, which the law does not mandate right now. So the legislators have filed an amendment to the first bill, which to the first bill, which I disagree with. What they said now is, well, hey, if you're gonna, instead of posting meeting minutes, you can just post the meeting video. You don't need to post minutes. And I said, I disagree with that. I think it's important to have a written document that has how people voted, that has how the motions were made. I can quickly look at a 4, 5, 10-page written meeting minutes, but I don't want to sit through an hour-long meeting if I don't have to, and then try to find where in the meeting they talked about whatever it was that I was interested in. So I was a little frustrated and disappointed that the legislator Paulin and Senator Kaplan automatically amended the bill. And I'm supposed to have a phone call tomorrow with legislator Paulin to talk about this and explain to her why I don't agree with that. So I'm all for posting the meeting documents and mandating that they're, it has to be recorded and posting the recording online. But I don't think that means you eliminate meeting minutes. Now, on the one hand, most places will probably still do meeting minutes anyways, and they may still post them anyways because they're not required to do it now and they do it. But my fear is if they understand, well, we don't have to do this anymore, we just post the video, that less and less places will post minutes. So that's a concern.
And Paul, Paul, I agree with your concern, and I also feel, as you do, to watch an hour, sometimes 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
If there's a subject that's contentious, people are there forever. And I agree that it's nice to get 4 or 5 pages, and some people are not on their computers, whether it's your grandparents or whatever, that might just want to read these documents like a newspaper. So I think there's a lot to be said about people who just don't want to, there's grandparents and even younger people who don't get on TikTok and Facebook, and they just want to read the paper and, the news and whatever. So I hope you're successful in pursuing that point tomorrow. So good luck.
Yeah, and in our reports, we look at the minutes for our executive sessions. We looked at all those minutes. We can't watch hours of meeting videos. And part of the argument I made is look, no one is monitoring compliance with the open meetings law except for us. And one of the quickest, easiest ways for us to do that is by looking at meeting minutes.
Right.
And, let's not eliminate that. So I don't know, anytime legislation gets introduced, there's always compromise. And it's like, you know what, if this is what we have to do to get it passed, it's better than nothing. So it's just the nature
And what
of
about,
getting 200 people to agree on something.
what about, and
Yeah.
what about areas that don't, like rural area, that might want to get access to minutes from outlying areas? They might want to see what we're all about or what the meeting's about or what we're doing. They might not have the access to, just
Well,
like with, registering
right.
for COVID.
And the
vaccines.
local government would have the option. They could not post their meeting video, I guess, and post the minutes. But if you post the meeting video, you don't have to post the minutes. So I don't know. So we'll figure it out.
I think we need both.
Yeah,
We need both.
Janet.
My question is, if we go through the minutes now, we accept them, approve them, or what are they gonna do? Make a motion to approve a video? If
Well,
they don't have minutes?
You don't have to approve meeting minutes, but most places do. But that's why I think a lot of them will still do it anyways, but maybe not. I don't know. And, when you file a lawsuit, it's nice to attach the minutes. I mean, it gets a little awkward attaching videos. You can do it in court cases, but it's just not easy, Sonia.
Paul, I wholeheartedly agree with you, the minutes. And another thing you mentioned, which is very important, a person, what his vote was on a matter.
Right.
And a lot of times they'll say, I'm voting for this for such and such reason or not, and give their reasoning. That is so important. And you just reminded me on another matter, which I'll bring up towards the end of our meeting, something related to this matter later on.
Okay. So as part of these bills, what I did is I have an email list of all 211 state legislators, assembly members and senators. And I sent them all an email saying, hey, please, we're going to do a press conference Monday. It would be great if you would sign on as a co-sponsor of these bills. And if you do sign on by the end of the day today, we'll be sure to list your name in our press release. I thought, well, maybe a little incentive, they always like to get mentioned. And disappointingly, out of 211, I got 3 people who said, yeah, I'll sign on.
Oh, wow.
It's just, it's just kind of amazing. I think part of it is they're not, you know, the email doesn't go directly to the senator or the legislator, it goes to a staff person, and, you know, they either ignore it or they don't know what to do with it, or, you know, it gets passed around, so, but only 3 people signed on.
Were any of the legislators from the Western New York area, or were they from the Albany area?
They're all from downstate, so.
Okay, Thank
So
you.
I'm sure legislator Paulin will work on getting more co-sponsors, but for now, we have her and the senator and like 3 others, so.
You know, Paul, when you shared that, their bills, you know, it's like, my God, we're in prehistoric time. These are very basic in governing. And I read it and I read it again, and it's like, I can't believe it. Let's get with the times.
Yeah, doesn't seem that difficult.
Right. And I think Freeman would naturally say, my God, hey, this is the new millennium. You should be doing this already.
Yeah.
Electronic with him. It's, hey, you know what we need? What do they call it? You're on the so-and-so shameless.
Yeah,
You,
yeah,
you haven't done this already?
yeah.
I'm glad.
Well,
And that was a good idea, letting the others know. And good idea, Paul, what you did.
okay. Any questions on our press conference Monday?
Will you be sending a link if any of us
I
can make
will.
it?
I'll send it
Okay.
out tomorrow morning.
I think it's for 10 o'clock, Paul, right?
Yeah.
If I have that correct?
Yeah.
10 a.m.
Thank you.
So next item on our agenda is just follow up regarding the report that we just released. So we recently released our report regarding villages. I think that's the first time actually we did a report on villages. We've done like counties, cities, towns. This is the first time we've done villages. 20 villages from across the state. I sent out an email earlier today just with the links of the news coverage that we received. And I mentioned in there, it was kind of interesting to me that we're getting better coverage, I think, in the smaller community newspapers than we are the big newspapers. So we didn't get any coverage in the Buffalo News, the Rochester Democrat, the Syracuse Post. But there are a handful of smaller newspapers across the state that did cover it, and a TV station in Binghamton. So, I mean, that's fine. As I said, that we can do the Walmart approach. I mean, Walmart started with all the small communities and worked their way up to the bigger communities. But I think we got good coverage from it. And it ties in nicely with these bills that we're trying to get passed, because in the report, we found that 35% of the villages were not posting their meeting minutes. 35% were not posting meeting agendas. And I think it was 70% not posting their meeting documents, which the law requires. So, I mean, you're violating the law by not posting your meeting documents. So it just proves why the law needs to be amended, because they're not doing it, and why we need to have, you know, the law strengthened. Actually, another big part of the problem is just no penalties, no enforcement. But so I think that was good, and we'll move forward with working on our next report. But Sonia?
Paul, did you send out to the B? Because, you know, the B has what, 10 different
Yeah,
municipalities?
they're on our email list. They got it.
And the Western New York in Niagara County, the
Yeah,
Tribune?
I got
Okay.
like 300 media outlets on my email list.
Wow, great, great.
Yeah. So our next project is supposed to be regarding planning boards, zoning boards. I think planning boards are probably more interesting than zoning boards. So I think maybe planning boards. We'll look at 20 different, you know, planning boards, and same thing. Are they posting, you know, meeting minutes, documents, agendas, and see what we find. So I'll be calling on people to help out with that. Yes, Sonia, you're
Uh,
on fire tonight.
Well, there's a lot of things, a lot of agenda items. And on that, with respect to what we were talking earlier, uh, I know specifically in my own municipality, when you come before the zoning board, you make your case and the planning or zoning people can ask questions. In Amherst, I know when they have the communications, they have what do you call it? Where a person can see the plans and what have you. We don't have that in my community. And when they have the minutes, it is their response on their decision is, well, it doesn't, the five things that they have asked, it doesn't affect so and so. It doesn't, it's a cookie cutter. That is wrong.
Yep.
The state would be against that. And also, I remember coming across a few years ago, I don't recall if it was the governor or the attorney general, the state attorney said, it was what do you call it, the executive, this is what must be done. And they said, no, you can't do 1 through 5. You've got to give your reasoning why you're making the decision, what it is. You never have that. That's another thing you never have in my community. It's boom, bang, boom. That is so opposite to what the statutes call for, what the APA, American Planning Association, they advocate for being very clear, for having people participation, for showing the facts, asking the questions, and really following what the state statutes say, what the federal. Amherst is about the only one, and I don't know all the municipalities, but
Yeah.
over the years, they've gotten better because people really watch the planning and zoning agendas and they speak up and speak out. So
Yeah,
they're pretty good.
planning boards are a hot topic in a lot of communities. So that'll be a good report for us to do.
Really, it will. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if we drum up a lot of people checking us out on that.
Yeah. So let's go to our next item on the agenda, which is number 7, which is joining the National Freedom of Information Coalition. So when I first started putting this group together, when the idea came to me to, form a group, I stumbled across the National Freedom of Information Coalition website. And they have and I didn't realize there was, groups all across the country. And most of them were statewide groups. And I said, well, I don't think I'm ready to be a statewide group, but that's why we started as the Buffalo Niagara Coalition for Open Government first. But on their website, they have the bylaws and websites from every other group across the country. And that was very helpful. I used that to draft our bylaws. I picked and choose pieces from bylaws from across the country that I liked. And that, they charge $250 to join. Well, at the time we had $200 in our budget. So I said, no, we can't do that. But now our treasury is up to $1,400, and maybe now is a good time to actually join the coalition, the national coalition. They just recently hired a new outreach director, and they seem to be revamping things and doing a lot of things. And I had a nice Zoom chat with him a week or 2 ago, and they're putting together all kinds of seminars and webinars and conferences, and it seems like they have a lot of activity coming up. So I thought for $250 a year, it may be a good idea for us to do it since we have the money. It may help for additional resources and educational things for us.
So moved.
So Steve Lyle makes a motion that we join the coalition at a cost of $250.
And I second that.
All right, Maria seconds that.
I third it, yeah.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one question.
Sure.
Is that the National Federation, obviously it's national. Are there states like the Albany Open Government the Albany, the Albany Open Government and other state governments that are part of this federation? They must
There
be
are,
required.
for New York State, the only other New York State member is a group called Reinvent Albany, and we've done some work with them. Reinvent Albany is a good group. They tend to focus more on what's happening in Albany, whereas we focus more on the local level. So I asked them, is that any problem, having two groups from New York? And they said, no, not at all. But the New York State Committee on Open Government is not a member of the coalition.
So is that, Paul, how you think they might be of benefit to our membership when we are connecting with them with respect to the New York State Committee on Open Government?
No, I don't think it'll change anything as far as how we deal with the committee, but I think it just gives us another network of folks to tap into and get information about.
I think it's great.
They
Yeah,
are on, they look at the states in the United States mostly, and how
I think they have like 30 members or from each one that is a statewide organization like ours. So there's, the California Coalition for Open Government, the Illinois Coalition for Open Government. So, and they do a yearly conference, which will probably be Zoom this September. So it's just a way for us to interact more with other groups like ours across the country.
And I think it's a good thing too, because you can share ideas.
Yeah.
With something that we might be stumbling on, they could have, invented that wheel, and we could just extrapolate that and say, oh, gee, we didn't know that.
so
Okay, we'll
And
use that.
likewise, they were very interested. They've never seen anyone do reports like ours.
aha,
Geez, this is an interesting idea that maybe other groups should be doing. So,
right, I hear. And so another thing is the resources that we have, we could receive from them. They
right.
have-
In the past, they've gotten grant money, which they've distributed to groups, and they have money available to help with lawsuits. So things like that.
Well, the fact that they really took a notice what we're doing, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, they've kind of already included us, even though we're not paid members, because I think we're actually, pretty active compared to a lot of other groups. So,
Okay, Janet, I'm sending my money to you.
I don't think I called for a vote on that. So we have a motion and a second on joining the National Coalition, and all those in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we have on the line with us as our guest speaker tonight, a reporter by the name of Chip Rowe. Mr. Rowe is a reporter for the Highlands Current. And I was not aware of this newspaper. Again, it's been really interesting to me. There's some really great smaller newspapers across the state. Some that publish once a week, some that publish every day. But they're doing great work on covering local government issues and open meeting law issues. And I found the Highlands Current recently. They're based in the Hudson Valley area of New York. And Mr. Rowe has done a whole series of great articles about open government issues. He did a series of articles last year on a law that Putnam County passed, which was pretty amazing. They passed a law that said every legislator would have the power to determine what is secret and confidential. And they would decide, what can be released or not released. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Work if you can get it.
And Mr. Rowe also did an article recently. We've talked a little bit about this, about political caucus meetings, which I think one of the worst exceptions to the open meetings law in New York is if you are, on a town board or a county legislature, all of the Republican members can have a private meeting. So can all the Democratic members. So the members of the same political party can have a secret backroom meeting to talk about things. And I guess I understand it to a degree in Albany, when you're passing legislation and there's 100 legislators and they as a party want to figure out what their position is. So they have caucus meetings, or at the congressional level. But at the local level, I mean, is there really a Democratic or Republican way to, plow the streets or provide police services or whatever? But a lot of places do this. They can have a private backroom meeting, and they're supposed to really talk about party business, but the law says they can talk about whatever they want. And a lot of times they go through the whole meeting agenda and they call people in, department heads, and ask questions. So it's kind of the pre-meeting before the meeting. And if they're the majority, it's just kind of, all a done deal. So Mr. Rowe has done some great articles, and I thought it might be interesting to have him maybe talk a little bit about that Putnam County law and what that was about and where that's at. And I don't know how he came across the whole, political caucus meetings. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Rowe and have him talk to us for a little bit, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Well, thanks, Paul.
And just so you know, this meeting is being recorded.
Oh,
So
that's okay. I won't swear. It's good to be in a group of freedom lovers. That's always fun. So the Highlands Current is a nonprofit weekly newspaper based in Cold Spring. We also cover Beacon. They're two towns on the Hudson River on the east side. It was founded in 2010 when Roger Ailes of Fox News moved into our little town and bought the local 150-year-old newspaper. And all the progressives, we're very Democratic on this side of the county, and the Republican Party dominates on the east side of the county. All the progressives in town kind of went ballistic and started their own paper. And it's grown. We've been, this is our 10th year, and we're supported by, it's free paper, the website's free, and we just get donations from the community. Much like NPR, we have memberships, and we have some big donors and some foundations. And so that's the background of it. The thing that's interesting in Putnam is, and some of the upstate counties in the West are like this too, it's been, the legislature is dominated by the Republican Party. There's 9 members, 1 member that's a Democrat represents us in Phillipstown. And what we saw happen, it was previously she defeated a Republican, so they had 9 members and all Republican. So once she started, she was seated about 2 years ago. The reporter who covers that panel noticed that the meetings would start, and it was like the 8 Republicans were loaded for bear. Like they came out, and any topic they had obviously coordinated before the meeting, what they were going to say, what the questions would be, how the vote was going to go. And I thought it was curious. The Democrat started to complain that they were making all the decisions in the back room and then coming out and voting, and it, chop, chop, chop. It kind of was predetermined. So that's what got me curious about it. I just found some archival articles that had been in law journals, the Albany Law Review and so forth, where people had addressed this, back in the 70s when they changed the law twice. They actually changed, first they made it, I hope I can remember this. First, they made it that it was not subject to FOIL. And then the legislature changed it in '85 to say that you could talk about whatever you want. It was only subject to FOIL if you didn't talk about party business. That's what it was. So as long as you talked about party business, it wasn't subject to FOIL. And then in '85, they changed the law to be that you can talk about whatever you want. You can invite in whoever you want. And so what happened once was we had a controversial issue, And the Democratic rep told me she sat there and watched as people paraded into the back room. The legislative council went back there, the legislative clerk went into the room. I mean, it was essentially a meeting with everybody but her. And so it is kind of ridiculous, as Paul, you said. I mean, I found in my research in writing about it, two things kind of struck me. One was they did the Open Government Committee on Open Government back in the 70s suggested that it'd be really simple to fix this by just making it, if you have 2/3 of the member of the body in a meeting, it's foilable. It's got to have minutes. It's open meetings law applies. And that would solve it because, for instance, in Dutchess County, the split is 15-10. And so it's 15-10, so it doesn't seem as egregious as 8-1, but you know, they would have to just keep it below 2/3. And the other thing that's frustrating to me is really the Committee on Open Government has no teeth, it has no enforcement power. And so that to me just makes it kind of a exercise in people like me writing columns and everybody ignoring it, because we need something where they can go in and say, you can't do that, that violates the open meetings law, or, you know, whatever. I file a lot of foils and often it's funny, I'll cite some opinion from the committee and Putnam County who doesn't like me, will right back with rejecting it and citing another opinion, a different opinion. And so that just tells me it's kind of pointless unless we're going to sue. And so you know, I do like to write about these issues because I'm sure you all agree. I mean, I think it should be, I don't understand why everything can't be in the open. I mean, this is taxpayer money, and why do you have any kind of secret meeting? Any kind of discussion you're having should be something we can hear. And the law you alluded to, they passed last year, which they really, after we wrote about it repeatedly, they watered it down quite a bit. We got some national attention from some of the free speech groups, and in New York, some of the publishers groups kind of came to, you know, started to wrote letters and raised a ruckus. But essentially the law, it was a reporter who covers Putnam came in and showed me this agenda item on one of the committees, and it was like one line. It just said confidentiality law. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. And so she listened in, and what the law was that not just the legislators, any employee or consultant of the county, if they wanted something to be secret, they could just write confidential on it. And that would trigger, what that triggered was, the law department still dealt with a FOIL request, so you could still FOIL something marked confidential, but it had consequences for the legislators and employees, ethics consequences. They would be referred to the ethics board of the county if they, for instance, gave me something that somebody had just written confidential on. And so it was pretty egregious. And we thought it was fascinating that they expected employees of the county to have this legal knowledge to know what could be foiled or not foiled. And so at first I was kind of irritated, but then I realized that it really was brilliant for us, because I just started filing monthly foils asking for everything that was marked confidential, because they were basically telling me what they didn't want me to see. And so they had to review the legal departments, the law department still reviewed everything. But I did this until COVID started. I stopped at that point, but I did it for like 9 or 10 months. And I just foiled the county executive, the tourist department, every department that I thought would have marked secret. And the first month they sent me like 5 documents, all innocuous. Like, why would this be marked confidential? And by the 9th month, they were just saying there's no confidential. We did not, there's no, what is the term they use? No current records, or we don't have any records. Or they deny it on one of the 9 or 8 or 9 reasons they can deny it. So then in response to that, we came up with a cartoon kind of guide so that we listed in the paper all 9 months, what I got, what I didn't get. And then the rejections, we used a little police car if they said it was, for law enforcement investigation or whatever. So we tried to have fun with it, because I think because the committee can't enforce anything, the people in Putnam just kind of laugh. I've got foils to the police department or the sheriff's department. They just ignore them, because what am I going to do about it, right? If they don't reject it, I can't appeal. I'm not going to sue them. And so it becomes, and I do want to have a good relationship with them. So there's no teeth to it at all.
Chip,
And
excuse me, Chip,
yeah,
do they have an ethics board?
yeah, they do. They
And
have an ethics board.
have you ever said, we have such and such, would you please look into this? We believe that this is not ethical, whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's an approach. I guess my strategy has been just to make fun of them and just write about it, how ridiculous it is. That's worked. It worked with the secrecy law, because when it went to the county executive, she sent it back and said, we can't do this. They just watered it down a little bit, that only, I think it's only legislators or something they can do it now, or they took out like all the employees being able to do it, or consultants. So that worked in that sense. That was effective. And we also embarrassed them. I mean, all the free speech and the newspaper associations made fun of, backwoods Putnam.
That didn't do anything, huh?
What's that?
Embarrassing them didn't do anything.
It did. It watered the bill down a little bit, but right now I'm dealing, another issue that I'm sure you've discussed is the police review disciplinary records. And I've done the same thing with that. I've requested it from all the people that we cover, the county and the Beacon and Cold Spring, and half of them ignore me. And the other half, like Putnam said, well, we need until 2022 because we don't have them digitized. So we have to go through them, one by one. And I was like, God, how many cops do you have that have disciplinary records? I mean, but they can do it. What am I going to do? I mean, they tell you they're waiting for the lawsuits to be worked out, which are going to take years. And, New York City's got a lawsuit, so they cite that. We can't do it until they settle the New York City lawsuit. And I'm like, well, we're not in New York City. And so I've got the Beacon Fire Department sent me a document from 1985 where some fireman was chastised for doing his report wrong or something. That's the only document I've gotten out of probably 10 foils. And again, they know they don't have to give it to me. They'll just ignore it. Even if I appeal it, the appeals go to the county executive in Putnam, who, rejects them. And so unless we're going to sue, and you discuss budgets later, like we're not going to sue. Yeah. So it's frustrating. And you almost wonder if FOIL even helps. I mean, in the old days, you just have a relationship with these people. You'd be a beat reporter and you'd know the, sheriff, and that happens sometimes with Putnam. Like the finance commissioner is really helpful to us. I email him and ask him a question and he sends me the documents. There's no FOIL this, but then some of the smaller towns we deal with have started just saying anything you ask, they make you FOIL it. And then they know, it knows it's going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it won't be a story anymore. So it's just every agency is so different. I foiled Putnam for asset forfeiture. I was interested in what they were seizing. That still exists. It's hard to believe, but they can go take your stuff even if you haven't been convicted, right? So they can just say, oh, you were a drug dealer, we're taking your car and all the money. and then you're acquitted later, you can't get it back. So I just wanted a list of who they'd taken what from, and so I could see how many of the people were convicted later. And Putnam, like right away, sent it to me, no problem. Duchess, the guy, the DA wrote me, or whoever it was, wrote me and said, well, you asked for us to compile the list, but that's beyond FOIL. We're not required to compile anything. And so then I resubmitted it with, could you just, some other wording, could you give me the list? And then it, like 2 months went by and they sent me the list, and it's no names, it's just a date, how much it was valued at, not what it was. And then that's it. It was like 3 columns. So bullshit, just, sorry.
That's all right.
Yes. So I can't do anything with it. It's already 3 months later and I have to go back, and so the story's not going to happen. And that's I think a reporter's frustration, is you have to wait. And
Right.
so I don't know, all of it seems like I just go back to, why is this stuff secret? Like, why? They always say, well, we have to have it secret. And you hear this from Albany too, that we need to negotiate, we need to figure out what our position is, we have to be free to express ourselves, so we need to do it behind closed doors. And I'm like, well, why?
Well,
Why? You're an elected official. That's how it works.
Mr. Rowe, I can speak from experience because I was a shooting star 20 years ago in the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
and they wanted me to be involved in caucus meetings, and I absolutely refused to do it. And I can't tell you the amount of pressure. I was in a little town of Rotterdam that the county put on me, the other politicians, and they go, why won't you do it? And I would tell them it's simple. When somebody comes to a public hearing, they want to have the understanding that the people that are sitting up on that podium are going to measure all the facts and be fair and not make their mind up in advance. And I refused to do it. And I can assure you that 11 years ago, I was ostracized out of the party. And my personal belief is that they have those caucus meetings. A, they don't want the public to know how dumb they really are. I'm being very frank.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
The strength of any government, especially a democracy, the old timers, is debate. And when they have those caucus meetings, it's a miracle how they come out into the open forum, and when an item comes up for discussion, nobody debates anything.
Right.
Nobody. And
Yeah.
that's, to me, is the biggest thing about those caucuses. And what it does is, why should people watch a meeting? Nobody discusses anything.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, and I know what you're saying, because now that I've been, say, off the circuit for probably 7 or 8 years, I go through the same thing when I try to get information. And Mr. Wolf's aware of that. There's several issues we've worked on, and I'm telling you, it is really detrimental to our form of government. And if it doesn't change, I fear for the future in this country.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what struck us, was there was no debate or discussion, and especially now, Putnam does their meetings on audio connection, and so no video. And so we've had to, there's been instances, it's kind of funny actually, because they'll tell the Democrat to shut up and stuff, but we can't figure out who's saying it because you don't have the video, so you have to
There's a reason for that.
voice readings or something, but they don't take questions, they don't, under the they'll say we don't have to take questions, and so it's eliminated any interaction with the public. And
because like I said earlier, they don't want to expose themselves to the public, because most of the meetings are videotaped.
right.
And they don't want the to see how little they really know. I mean, most of them are there for the social benefits, and they really don't want to discuss it in the open forum. They're
Well, I
afraid to.
can't blame them. I wouldn't want people yelling at me and disagreeing, and a lot of
Hey.
the people are from Phillipstown, our side of the county, go over to yell at them. So it's uncomfortable, but you want to be an elected official, you're going to have to deal with
That's exactly
conflict, right? And so,
Yeah, if you didn't want the job, why did you take it?
yeah. Well, I
You
wanted to
gotta
say one thing, your report that you all did on the boards just last week, right?
Village boards.
Yeah, so that I really like that, and I thank you for that, because I'm gonna take the criteria in that report and apply it to our credit you, and then I'll see how our local, I think we cover 7 boards, and I did a chart like 2 years ago where I just went who posts their videos, who posts their minutes, because they don't have to post their minutes online. So we did like a chart that way, but I thought I'd take your criteria and basically do the report, but only with my people, my local, and then say, this is the criteria you all came up with, and I'm sure nothing will change, but maybe we'll embarrass them. Probably not.
Well, that's the success we have had, is basically just by embarrassing people. Some of these reports do cause some change. I'm always amazed at the amount of hostility we receive as well. I mean, so many elected officials are just incredibly defensive and hostile.
Right.
But there are some who are at least receptive and will make changes, and that's all we can hope for.
Well, one of the decisions in the reason the legislature changed the law with the caucuses was there was a court decision that said if basically said you can only talk about well, there's been 2 court decisions. That one said you can only talk about party business, and that's why the legislature changed it. And then the other one was if they're all members of the same party,
Right.
it violates the open meetings law, which everybody just ignores. But I forgot my thought. You said something, Paul, that maybe.
No.
So, yeah.
Caucus meetings are something I want to do a report on in the future, and something I want to focus on in the future as well.
Well, the report I would like you to do is, I started doing this with the story, but then stopped. But if you go to the New York County Association of Counties, I think it's called, they have a book, and it lists all 63 counties, is that right? 63 and the members of their legislature, and then their parties. And so I had started looking to see if there were other situations like Putnam. And in the west side of the state, there are some that have 9 Republicans, 16 Republicans. Westchester has 1 Republican and 15 Democrats. And so it isn't just Putnam, it is, if you're going to look at the caucus stuff, that to me is what is interesting, when it's 8-1 or 15-1, and they are going in and discussing it. And well, I know what the thought was. One court decision said, literally the judge said, well, we should just rely on the goodwill of elected officials not to do this. Like they shouldn't be doing this. And so we'll rely on them to do the right thing. And I just thought, well, that sums it up, right? I mean, that's what the Committee on Open Government kind of is too, right?
Well, I know
Holding letters, you shouldn't be doing that.
In Buffalo, it's interesting because all members of the Common Council are Democrats. And they do have a caucus meeting, but it is open to the public and the press, because by law, they have to. If they're all the same party,
Yeah.
they have, so.
That one court decision, it was in Erie County. They respect that.
Right.
But on Long Island City, or one of them, somebody called them on that and said, you're all Democrats having caucus meetings, you can't do that. And the city attorney just said, well, that's in Erie County, it doesn't apply to us.
Right.
So it's all BS, you pick and choose. And again, it's because there's no enforcement there's no enforcement for the committee to write a letter and say, you guys, we're gonna fine you,
Right?
or, you know,
That's something that really has to change in the state of Massachusetts. The Attorney General has the ability, a citizen can complain. The Attorney General has the ability to
yeah.
investigate and fine local officials and government officials for violating the law.
That's a new
Yeah.
law, right?
And if the government officials disagree, they can file a lawsuit. Whereas in New York, you gotta file your own
Yeah,
lawsuit. There's no
does make
government
sense.
agency that will help you in any way.
yeah. No, that's the way to do it. Make them, I think you gotta have it where they get fined without any court being involved. It's just the committee has the power to do it. Because otherwise, if they had to go to court, it's like, then it takes,
Right.
but the other thing is the problem with FOIL is that I don't think that it has a big enough presumption of, you know, I think everything should be presumed that it's open, and they have so many vague exceptions
Loopholes.
that you know, Putnam just fits everything into one of the 9. I mean, even, and how am I supposed to know if it's, you know,
Yeah.
true or not? And so we just, I don't know, we have such problems. We've been writing about an ambulance, the local volunteer ambulance corps is in a contract dispute with the county or the town because the town gives them all this money, you know, and so we're writing about the dispute, but we haven't seen the contract. And so they made us spoil it. And so that was like a month ago.
Yeah.
And so.
And you've got a lawsuit with it? with that?
No, we
Okay.
just keep writing. We haven't seen the contract and.
Chip,
Oh.
first of all, God bless you for your persistence and your caring. There aren't enough of you out there. You're a reporter in your area. Do other reporters think as you do and feel as you do? Do you coalesce like in New York State? I think it was the 50A law about the police officers.
Yeah,
The newspapers were coming together and they were backing up. Wasn't it this particular case, Paul? It was in a paper about the larger newspapers. They were supporting about information getting out.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, the 50A,
occasionally you'll
yeah,
see
the bigger
editorials.
papers, right?
And what I'm saying, aren't there other, even if you're smaller newspapers, aren't there people like you that say, you know, this is not right? Don't you come together?
Well, it's kind of interesting, you know, the Journal News, which is in White Plains, which is a Gannett paper, they have one reporter, David McKay Wilson, who does the tax column. He files a ton of, he just did a great story where he found that police commissioners were getting free Metro North passes. So that would be like the mayor was a police commissioner. You're not a policeman, he was just on the commission or whatever. So they were giving out these, you know, they're worth like $4,000 around here to go into the city. And so he did a great thing. He foiled it, but of course it took a year. But then once he got the list, he started calling up these local officials going, why do you get a free pass? And the guy's like, well, I'm a police commissioner. And if there was a crime, I would run down there and have my pass, you know, bunch of BS. But outside of that, we're kind of unusual paper. Like I have a staff of like 4 or 5 reporters, employees, plus all these freelancers. We're very well funded. Our budget's over $500,000, but our
Wow.
circulation is 3,000.
Holy
And
cow.
the reason is we have Garrison, which is a very wealthy community, and a lot of the people there are retired big time journalists. So they give a lot of money. So we're not a model for anything. Most of the papers that are weeklies in New York are one man or one woman operation. They're not foiling stuff. They don't have time. It's like you're just covering the meetings, you're covering that kind of thing. But I'm, you know, lucky I can sit down but once you learn to foil it, you know, it's not that hard. You just learn to be really specific. You learn some of the tricks. And it is frustrating as I'm sure all you're aware. It's like to wait a few months. Sometimes I don't bother. It's like, I'm not going to write about this in a year. So 50A is going to take, you know, eventually I'll get it because we will sue. I mean, I will sue eventually if they don't release it, but the COVID is kind of, you know, I'm not really pressing people. They got other things to worry about right now, but
So are you familiar with Investigative Post in Buffalo area?
No.
It's kind of similar to you. They get a lot of grant funding and foundation funding, and they're like an office of 4 or 5 reporters, and all they do is investigative type reporting.
Yeah.
And they kind of contract with some of the local TV stations to kind of supply them,
Oh, right.
you know.
Yeah.
Kind of a-
Breaking news. Breaking.
Yeah, I mean, most of our paper is, you know, we covered the meetings, and we've had 3 people arrested who were at the Capitol, so that's been a big story, you know. So a lot of this is just, I'll just fire off some foils every week. You know, some looks interesting. And you know, I think, you know, I'm sure none of the frustrations I've expressed are surprising. I'm sure to any of you, but you know, you do have to be persistent. I mean, everything like the New York Times has done is just them continuing to, you know.
All right.
Chip,
So,
Chip, what you have spoken about reminding me this afternoon on the cable news, one of the reporters were saying because of what's happening in Georgia and some of the other states, the party that wants to, in essence, keep people from voting, different tactics. He's saying people have to remember how important voting is and come out and vote. And it just wraps it up for me, what you're saying. People have to take their citizenship serious and come and vote and take an interest in what's happening in your community.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
well, you know, it's interesting. They found that, you know, a lot of papers are dying. We've lost about 1,800 papers in the last 5 or 10 years. But they've done studies where they've shown that towns that have newspapers, more people run for office, more people vote, more people are involved. And so we've used that in our fundraising to say, you know, you want to have, we are here for a very important reason, which is not just to expose corruption, because not everybody's corrupt, but to engage people, to say, here's the issues. You know, we have a town we cover that's got 200 voters, Nelsonville, New York. It's 200 people vote. And we, this week, are running, you know, interviews with the 4 candidates for the 2 seats. And they, I think about 3 weeks ago, started emailing me, when are you going to interview me? When are you going to interview me? Because that, you know, there's a lot of interest. There's a big cell tower controversy. You know, they want to stick a cell tower in the middle of the cemetery, basically. So these things are really important to people, and the paper is what provides you with, engages people in that. And we, you know, I think most newspapers, I know I do, we push voting. I mean, we, for weeks ran how to absentee ballot, how to get your apps, how to, you know, how the primaries work in New York, why you see all these strange parties on the ballot, how the signatures, you know, all the process of what you have to go through. And I think that's a really important role for journalism and newspapers, because we want engaged people, because those same people, when they're engaged, give us money, right? They're engaged in donating. So people who are engaged in politics also are engaged in democracy, also see the value of it. So it's all tied together, I think.
Well, Chip, I want to thank you. Oh, you got something, Steve?
Yeah, if I could add something to that, I think absolutely voting's critical, but it's just as important to be showing up at these meetings. And if you show up at these meetings, you're probably the only other one, or 2 or 3. My town of 15,000 here in Lewiston and far northwestern New York. I'm often the only citizen, the only non-town employee showing up. And, you know, I've gotten to know these guys, and if I say something, at least they'll listen. And generally people don't show up until they're pitchforks and torches and their own ox is being gored.
Right, yeah.
But you can encourage people just to stop in every so often and watch the sausage being made. I think that's just as important as voting.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely,
we
Steve.
have a reporter at most meetings, but you know what's interesting, Steve, as you see now, we've had record numbers of people at meetings on Zoom.
Right, I think that's
So-
been huge. I think that's been one of the most
Yeah.
positive things about COVID is
Yeah,
video.
we've
Yes.
had meetings, the village board, usually, you know, there's 3 people. One's my reporter and 2 other people who are there for a specific reason to complain about something or, you know, whatever. And he now goes to meetings, there'll be 50 people. And just because it's easy and they can listen and do something else you know, I actually pay my reporters not to cover stories too. Like I tell them, if you go to a meeting and nothing happens, I'll still pay you. I don't want you to write a story about nothing because so much of it's incremental. It's just kind of like they talked about it some more and then,
Right.
but I think that's, you know, the newspaper, even if people aren't going, somebody needs to go. It needs to, and if you don't have a newspaper in your town or your county, like a lot of counties don't even have them. Who's
Yeah.
covering the meetings? Who's, you know, you can't get it from the minutes. And that's really sad too. That's more the tragedy. Here we've got plenty of people, you know, covering it. So,
Well, I want to thank you, Steve, for taking the time to join us. And I know today or tonight is your deadline for your
Yeah.
paper. So,
I know my designer's like emailing me, you know, I'm like,
so we just got a few more minutes to do, but if you got to go, that's
yeah,
fine.
let me go. I appreciate all you're doing. And how much do you charge for your memberships?
Only $20. We're cheap.
20
It's
bucks.
a great value. It's a great value,
So
not.
I'm going to send you 20 bucks. The Highlands Current will join.
Great.
And then you only need to have 230 for the,
All right. I'll send you an email as to where you can send it.
yeah, I appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
Thank you all
you.
for your
Thank you, Chip.
diligence and attention to this, because I don't know how
Thank-
you'd continue. After a year, I'd forget it.
You haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. It was
Thank
very
you
enlightening.
very
Well,
much.
thank you for
Very
indulging me.
interesting.
All right. Take care.
All right, see you later.
Yeah. So that's something I'm trying to do for every meeting now is to have a guest speaker. We did that last month, this
Oh.
month. It may make our meetings go a little longer. We typically do our meetings in an hour, but I think it's worth it to hear from some other folks.
I think it's well worth it, Mr. Wolf, because you
Yeah.
hear the same frustration that you go through and before you think they're just picking on you. And like you said about the hostility, and either they wear you down or you wear them down, or you just give up, you just say, I don't care if you don't like me, I'm here for a foil, and you know, yes or no. And it's just nice to know that other people are in those shoes.
Yeah, yeah. So the next item on our agenda is new business. Does anybody have anything new they want to bring up?
You want to talk about attorney-client privilege, Paul?
Well, sure. In Rotterdam, Mr. Godlowski, in fact, I'm dealing with 2 issues with Mr. Godlowski. One is the town attorney did send me an email today that she's getting a letter out to me regarding your FOIL request. So we'll have to see what that says. She says tomorrow. And then there was a report done in the town of Rotterdam that was prepared by a law firm where they were taking a look at, there was a sex offender registration requirements that weren't being followed. So they hired an attorney to kind of do an audit as to, you know, what they were doing with this law. And because it was prepared by an attorney, they're saying, look, it's attorney privileged, it's confidential legal advice. We're not releasing, you know, the whole thing to the public. And that is one of the exceptions under the Freedom of Information Act is, you know, legal advice, legal documents. Although, you know, it's a fine line. Just because an attorney was part of something doesn't necessarily mean the whole thing is confidential. There may be parts of it that are confidential. So that's another issue that's come up in the town of Rotterdam. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Mr. Godlewski.
Well, it was interesting. Now, being that you're an attorney, and I don't know whether there's any other attorneys on the phone, but
No.
all right, I asked for all those invoices and everything back in November? And the answer I got, they don't exist. However, the paperwork that was issued with that report had one town invoice. And what they did, they didn't issue the invoice until December. And they added all the other 3 months billing to it. In other words, they had it, but they wouldn't release it. Now, the other thing was when that report came out, there was like 8 pages. Every line on those 8 pages is blacked out. When they gave you the billing from the law firm, by law, they have to break out the hours and what the subject was and who they talked to. About 90% of that document is blacked out. And that's why I sent an email to Paul. I mean, attorney-client privilege, because I was on the school board, so I'm a little familiar with it. To me, it sounds like, once again, we're trying to hide something from the public, because I can't understand how 7 or 8 pages of a report can be completely blacked out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, I've seen situations where the hourly rate that in Erie County, the county executive refused to release the hourly rate they were paying an attorney for the Buffalo Bills lease on the basis that it was a trade secret. Like, you got to be kidding me.
And you know what the scary part is? 90% of the public has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
They don't understand. And that's what they're counting on, that the public doesn't want to get involved and doesn't care. And that's where they, I like to say, get away with a lot of things they shouldn't be getting away with.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to do what we can. So on other new business, one of the things I started doing, I don't know what it is, but I think with us going statewide now and the reports that we're releasing, I'm getting way more emails and phone calls from across the state. So I've started keeping track. You know, the New York State Committee on Open Government, they do a report every year. And one of the things they have in there is how many people they have contacted them. So right now I'm up to 20 just for from January to now of news reporters, just citizens. And I've been keeping track. It's interesting. It's 50-50. About half are open meeting law issues and half are FOIL issues. But a lot of, like we said, a lot of the press we're getting is smaller newspapers, and they don't really have someone to turn to answer these legal questions. So I think we're helping in that regard. And I think we're much quicker to respond than the New York State Committee on Open Government is. And I've had people contact me and I've said to them, I disagree with that opinion by the New York State Committee on Open Government. And that's going to happen on occasion as well. I don't see things the same way they do all the time. So I think that could be in the future, if we ever apply for grant funding, one of the pitches we can make is, and I think it's a pitch for membership fees as well. One of the webinars I saw recently from the National Coalition was they had a guy talk about how they fundraise. And I didn't really think about, he said, you know, I provide a service to all these newspapers. They contact me for advice all the time. And the least they can do is become a member, you know. So that's something I'm probably going to send out I have this list of 300 reporters. I'm going to ask them to, join our group. And, if we get 10 of them, that's great. That's $200 in our treasury. But I had never thought of it that way, that we're providing a service to a lot of media folks as well, because they have questions and, what does this mean? Or are what they doing, correct? And along those lines, you're probably familiar, at least locally here, about Judge Mahalski and what's been going on with him. This whole thing with the judge being hit by a train. And there's
Yeah.
been some questions about whether that was a suicide attempt or an accident, and he's being investigated for other things. So I do have a reporter that has been contacting me about that. So I may be getting interviewed about that. And there is a video of what happened, but they're going to deny releasing it as an invasion of privacy. But I disagree with that.
Right.
He's a public figure, an elected judge. You don't have as much privacy as your average person. And this was an incident that happened in public.
Right.
And people videotaped it on their phone. So
Right.
just as they had every right to videotape it, he had no expectation of privacy while in public.
Right.
So you may see us, quoted or getting involved in that issue. So anything else under new business? Sonia?
I just had oh, go ahead,
Maria,
sorry.
Go ahead, Maria.
I just had a question, kind of along the lines of what you just mentioned about Judge Mikulski. It's just been kind of bugging me because we have Kathy Hochul, Lieutenant Governor. She's been unavailable. And, I just feel like, okay, she works for us. So is she on vacation? Is she taking personal days, or is she just staying home and not doing her work? And I'm not saying she has to make a major statement about Governor Cuomo, but I just think she should respond and say, waiting for the investigation or
Well,
whatever.
she has said that, and that's becoming a partisan issue with, Republicans saying you should say more. I don't know what she's gonna say. Her boss is in trouble. She ain't saying nothing.
Right. But I mean, even putting that aside, my feeling is you are a public official. And so if I ask you a question about a FOIL question or about hiring an attorney or the roads or the zoning or the potholes, it's the same thing. And I'm not going to ask her, is your boss guilty? I'm just,
No, I mean, she has
just
said
questions about,
there should
yeah,
be an investigation, and let's wait and see what the investigation comes up with.
yeah.
I
But
don't know
I
what else.
guess bothers me, she's not available. She has to be available. Either she's on vacation, she works for us, one of the two.
Yeah.
It was
right.
mentioned, it was mentioned this afternoon. I don't, maybe it was Longworthy or WBEN host, that it's been said how she is so close working with him. Well, she's so close working with him, she'll have some information about this allegation being made, but she's zipped up
Yeah,
on that cookie cutter response.
it'll all come out in the end, believe me.
It will.
Oh, I wanted to mention under new business,
Yeah.
with respect to the FOIL, you reminded me in Massachusetts, they have that law when somebody is alleging something about a municipal person, they don't have to take a lawsuit. What the Attorney General will look into it and they do it. And I want to say, this is what we need in New York State, because we have so many problems. So I know it's not going to happen today, tomorrow, maybe not even 5 years, but that's something to put out there. I mean, we are so backwards with our open meetings law. When I reread that again, we've got a long way to go to get to really have basic transparency. But don't forget, let's try to get the same thing Boston, Massachusetts has.
Right. And hopefully we can start with getting these two bills passed that legislator Paulin's introduced, and then build momentum from there for other things. But
I'm still thrilled and amazed how far we've come. And we should pat ourselves on the back. And under Paul's leadership, keeps us going with these Zoom meetings and stuff to do. I think it's emerging that this is our right to have this information. We're not just rebel rousers who have nothing better to do.
That's right.
And I think this is just wonderful. Thank you very much.
Paul, this is Brian. Paul,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment, I guess, is talking about meetings. I went to a board meeting. I think I told you a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago at the town of Newfane. It was a public hearing. And after the meeting, I had some questions, more questions that weren't answered. So Basically, I went to our website to get the information to contact the town board members and the zoning board members, and there was nothing on there. So I called the town clerk. Basically, she told me to send a FOIL for just to get the contact information for our town employees, or elected officials, if you will.
Yeah,
So-
it's amazing. I just had a reporter today contact me with the same problem in the town of Alabama. They have a big project proposed out there, and he wanted to contact the planning board members. It's not on their website, and they said, file a FOIL for it. You know, it's just,
Well, I filed a FOIL, that I normally, because I've been doing it for 20 years, you send an email saying, as per New York State, blah, blah, blah. And I think I told you, they had me fill out their own personal form that they had for the town of Newfane, on their, I think it was called access to public records document. So I'm writing a letter to the editor. I'm going to send it to the Buffalo News and also to the Union Sun and Journal for Sunshine Week for next week, just to say this is kind of stuff going on still.
yeah, they're supposed to accept FOIL requests by email. They're not supposed to say you have to use our form.
Well, that's what they told me.
Which they did in your case. I mean, they can say, we prefer you use our form, but you're supposed to be able to, you can send it in any way you want to send it in. But that's just, they don't understand, once again, what the law is.
Unfortunately, these are our elected officials making it hard just to reach out to ask some questions. It's just in this day and age, like you said, with the Zoom, we don't even have Zoom down here in Newfane. It's you got it and your own risk, if you will.
And Brian, you could contact New York State Department of State and the planning division and ask them, when are you having the next training session? And when they come to Western New York, there's board and zoning members who sometimes attend. Sometimes they don't have a good turnout, which speaks volumes, but you can also attend as a citizen. And I know you will learn a great deal. You'll have contact with the person giving the training. And it just occurs to me also, because of the pandemic, maybe they're having them via Zoom, but you could attend the meeting and you would learn so much, I'm certain, in that first meeting, and you would make contact with the training. And in the training, they tell them, here's how you conduct planning and zoning. You'll learn more than just basics. So Brian, I would strongly recommend you get in touch with them, and you'll be thanking me for this info. I'm sure.
He just wants an email to give them a piece of his mind.
There you go. That's it. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Well, so usually our meetings are the second Thursday of the month, but the second Thursday in April, I am not going to be available. So I have listed on the agenda. I was planning to move it to the third Thursday of the month, which would be tax day, April 15th. So hopefully that's not a problem for people. But just so everyone knows. So if we don't have anything else to discuss, we went a half hour longer than we usually do, but I think it was a good discussion.
Yeah, it was.
If someone wants to make a motion to adjourn, well, actually, let me, Mary Lou, anything you want to say as our new person here?
No, I've enjoyed the interaction. It is nice to connect with some people that are having the same problems and frustrations that I have experienced. And you can email me where I can send my membership.
Okay, great. Sure. All right, well, glad to have you. I look forward to seeing you at future meetings. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Maria, is there a second? Second by Alberta. Alberta, you were quiet tonight. Anything?
There's just lots to listen to and learn. And I really love the idea of having a guest. It was very informative and great meeting. Great meeting. Thank you.
I do too much talking and it'd be good to hear from some other people. So All right, great. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah, so we'll see you April 15th.
Good night.
Take care.